Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking through some player props I like on Prizepicks for the Week 7 college football slate. Going to break down 3 plays I'm liking for the Saturday slate of games. As always guys, we're going to break down these plays and share why I like them. Now, before we do get started, make sure that you hit that like button down below if you enjoy these Prizepicks videos. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button as well. And if you guys are new to the channel, and if you are new to Prizepicks, if you don't have a Prizepicks account, make sure that you go sign up, use that promo code NOAH when you do sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code and play $5. You're going to get $50 of free lineups just for signing up and using code NOAH. So definitely check out Prizepicks if you guys have not yet. And also, I do want to give a quick shout out to Sleeper because we do have a partnership with Sleeper as well. You guys can go sign up for Sleeper. Use promo code NOAH over on Sleeper and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. You're also going to get a free $20 entry. So as you can see on the screen here to my left, free $20 entry just for signing up for Sleeper and using code NOAH. And you don't have to make a deposit to get that entry in. So if you just want to try out the Sleeper app, if you want to download the app, get that free entry and then, play the free entry. If you win it, obviously you'd win some money. If you lose, it's nothing for you because it was a free entry. So this is an easy way for you to really try out the Sleeper app, see what they have to offer without even having to put any money in. Sleeper's really trying to get a lot of new users in. We got, obviously in the heat of the football season, NFL, college football going on right now. We got NBA coming up in a couple weeks. Sleeper's trying to get in new users. Again, this is a way for you to try out the site without even having to put any money in. So go download the Sleeper app, guys. And again, make sure that you use that promo code NOAH when you do sign up. But before we talk through our Prizepicks slates here for the Saturday slate, guys, I do want to recap the plays that we gave out in our video last Saturday. Gave out 3 picks last Saturday, went 2 for 3, so we hit 2 plays, missed 1. Did hit on Chase Sowell over receiving yards, also hit on Arch Manning over pass yards. Sadly, the play that missed was Drake Lindsey over pass yards. That play was looking really good to start off because I think Drake Lindsey had like 60 pass yards in the first drive of the game. And I want to say like in the first quarter, he had like 70 yards in the first quarter. And we took him over 173.5. So we only needed him to throw like 100 yards for the rest of the 3 quarters of the game. And I think he finished the game with like 90-something yards. Like he had like 20 yards in 3 quarters. I mean, Minnesota's offense just couldn't do anything after that first drive. They couldn't get any movement, couldn't get first downs, just constant 3 and outs, which going up against Ohio State's defense, obviously that was a risk, but given the game script, expected it to be a spot where Lindsey was going to be forced to throw, lean into their pass game, and they were forced to throw, but they just couldn't get any yards. I mean, it was just constant incompletions, constant 3 and outs. Super frustrating, but we're going to get back at it here, guys. Got 3 plays for this Saturday slate, and let's try and go 3-0 this week. So first prop that I'm liking is going to be a pass plus rush yards prop, and I'm liking Bo Prabula for more than 212.5 pass plus rush yards. So we're getting kind of a lower line here on Bo Prabula, probably, most likely due to the matchup against Alabama. Everybody knows that Alabama has a good defense. Alabama has always been one of the better, defenses in the country. But Bo Prabula has played really well for Missouri this year. He was on Penn State last season, transferred over to Missouri, and he's played well as a starter. You look at what he's done, as a passer. He's not really known as a passer. Like when he was at Penn State, they used him a lot in running plays. Like he was a guy they would bring in for quarterback powers, quarterback draws. He wasn't really out there to throw much when he played at Penn State, but he's shown to be a good passer so far, with Missouri this year. Some of these matchups where he did have big games, those kind of were some softer matchups, like against Kansas, against Massachusetts. But even as a passer, he's been really good this year. He's also a guy that does have rushing upside as well. As I said, when he was on Penn State last season, they did use him a lot as a runner. And so far this season, he has run for 121 yards. He did have negative 27 rush yards last week against Massachusetts, and obviously that's a little bit of a concern. In college, you do lose rush yards for quarterbacks. At least you lose yards when quarterbacks take sacks. So there's obviously a chance that Bo Prabula gets sacked a bunch and he's finishes with negative rush yards here. But he has shown really good rushing upside. Had 65 rush yards against Arkansas, Missouri, I believe that's who they played, or Central Arkansas. Yeah, against Central Arkansas. They played in the first game of the season. He had 65 rush yards that game. Against South Carolina, he had 72 rush yards. Like, he's a really good mobile quarterback. That's why I like his pass plus rush yards instead of his pass yards. There's only an 8-yard difference here, and I feel like more times than not in this spot, Beau Pribula is going to get more than 8 rush yards. Maybe he gets sacked a bunch and he finishes with negative yards, but again, he's been really good as a running quarterback this year. He's also been good as a passer as well. It's a spot where you would expect Missouri to probably be forced to throw. They are coming into this game as underdogs. They're playing at home, though, which I definitely think is good here. I feel like, Missouri's offense is more likely to perform better at home than if they were having to go on the road and play this game in Alabama. I think at home you expect Missouri's offense to play better. They've played well at home this season. I think they've actually played like all their games at home this year. They haven't played a road game yet, which is really weird. Missouri hasn't, but yeah, it's a spot where I think the market is heavily docking Pribula here because of the matchup. And while it is a tough spot on paper against Alabama, Pribula I think is a little bit of an underrated quarterback. The market has definitely docked his projections, I think, a little bit too much for this matchup. I like his pass plus rush yards here. I like getting that rushing upside that Pribula does offer. Hopefully, this is not a spot where he takes a bunch of sacks and finishes with negative yards, because I think more times than not he probably gets double-digit rush yards here, which you look at the difference between his pass yards and his pass plus rush, it's only an 8-yard difference. I'll take the pass plus rush yards there. And I also did play his over fantasy score. That line was at 15.5. I gave that out to Patreon members. It got bumped up to 16.5. I kind of like that play as well. But since the fantasy score line got bumped up, we're going to take his pass plus rush yards instead, because that is a prop that I do like on Pribula this year. For what it's worth, doesn't mean much, but for what it's worth, he has gone over this line in 4 out of 5 games this season. Now, the next prop that we're going to look at is going to be a fantasy score, and we're going to go to the Florida State-Pittsburgh game, and I'm liking Deuce Robinson for more than 14.5 fantasy score. So Deuce Robinson is another transfer. He was at USC last season, transferred over to Florida State. This Florida State team, they have a ton of transfers. Like they have a completely different roster than what they ran out there last season. We all know last season Florida State was a huge disappointment, finished the year 2-10. They've played a lot better this season. They've obviously had some tough losses. A tough loss against Miami last week, a tough loss on the road against Virginia. This feels like a good bounce back spot for Florida State's offense playing at home against Pittsburgh. Now, I know Pittsburgh had a big win last week against Boston College. They blew out Boston College, beat them like 48-7 or something like that. I'm not too high on this Pittsburgh team, though, especially their pass defense. Their pass defense has been pretty poor this year, and this Pittsburgh team has definitely been a pass funnel. The way you beat their defense is by throwing the ball. If you look this year, Pittsburgh's actually allowing the 4th fewest rush yards per game. Only Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech have allowed fewer rush yards than Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh's run defense has actually been very good this year, but their pass defense has definitely been a lot worse. They're giving up 241 pass yards per game. I think this does set up as a spot where Florida State's offense should be able to move the ball through the air with success. And it's a spot where Florida State has a big team total. They're playing at home. They're big favorites in this game. This sets up as a really good spot for, again, their pass offense. We're seeing some really high lines on Thomas Castellanos this week. Like his pass yards prop is set at 228.5. He's been throwing the ball a ton lately. Obviously, some of that's kind of been due to game script. Like the game against Miami last week, they were playing from behind, so Castellanos had to throw a ton. But he's been really good as a passer this year. This is something that a lot of people were kind of knocking Castellanos, saying like, oh, he's just a mobile quarterback. He's not really a passer. But he's been passing the ball well this year, and he's really leaned into Deuce Robinson as his top target. You look at the last 2 games, Deuce Robinson does have double-digit targets in both of their last 2 games. Had 10 targets against Miami last week, had 13 targets against Virginia. He's a big body receiver, so he's a guy that they can target a lot in the red zone, so he definitely has touchdown potential here. I like his fantasy score the most, but I honestly don't hate taking his over on receiving yards as well. He's gone over that line in 3 out of 5 games this year. He's gone over his fantasy score line in 3 out of 5 games as well. Again, because of the touchdown upside that Robinson has, because he's such a big body receiver, he's a guy that can target in the red zone. That's why I like his fantasy score, because obviously for fantasy score, you get 6 points for receiving touchdowns, and I think there's definitely a chance Deuce could score a touchdown here. Even if he doesn't score a touchdown, he could still go over this fantasy score line. Like he could have like 5 catches for 100 yards, and that would be 15 fantasy points. Like there's a lot of upside on Deuce Robinson in this spot. He's been a top target earner for this Florida State offense. Coming into the season, we weren't really sure who was going to be the top receiver for Florida State, because they also brought in Squirrel White from Tennessee. But Squirrel White hasn't been as involved as Robinson has. Robinson's kind of been the alpha wide receiver 1, been earning a lot of targets. He's been Castellanos' top target so far this season, and especially as of late. 23 targets the last 2 games. Wouldn't be surprised if you see this be another game where Deuce Robinson gets double-digit targets against a Pittsburgh defense that's been really easy to beat through the air versus on the ground. So I do like that as our second prop for Saturday. And then our last prop is going to be another fantasy score. This one's going to be on Jaden Mayava. And I like Jaden Mayava for more than 18.5 fantasy score. Now, this was also a play that I did give out to Patreon members. This line actually hasn't bumped. I gave this out at 18.5. It's still at 18.5. And I really like it at 18.5. The matchup here against Michigan, on paper, not the best, and that's probably why we're seeing some slightly lower lines on Mayava than what we have seen this season. Michigan, historically, they've been a good defense. That's kind of been their strength is their defense, and that's kind of been the case the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. But this USC offense is really, they're an offense that relies on big plays. They're able to really beat teams through the air, and we've seen Jaden Mayava be a very good fantasy quarterback so far this season just because they're using him so much as a passer. You look at his pass attempts per game this year, he hasn't been throwing the ball a ton, but we did see him really lean into their passing game last week, and Jaden Mayava did have 43 pass attempts last week against Illinois. A lot of their games this season have been games that they have won pretty easily. You look, first week of the season, they won 73-13 against Missouri State. Mayava only had 18 pass attempts, but he had 295 yards and 2 touchdowns on only 18 pass attempts. Also had a rushing touchdown in that game. And then against Georgia Southern, just another game where USC won easily. Mayava only had 24 pass attempts, but had 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then against Purdue, 28 pass attempts, 282 yards, and then did have a rushing touchdown. He didn't have any passing touchdowns in that game, surprisingly. And then the last 2 games, he's gone over this fantasy score line. Against Michigan State, 26 pass attempts, 234 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And then against Illinois last week, a game that we're playing from behind, we really saw them use Mayava's arm. He had 43 pass attempts last week, 364 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he's thrown 11 touchdowns this year. He's had 4 rushing touchdowns as well. So he's been a guy that has gotten a lot of touchdowns. That's obviously super important when you're talking about fantasy score. You want touchdowns, and Mayava has totaled 15 touchdowns this season. He's also thrown for over 1,500 yards in only 5 games. He's just been slinging the ball down the field, and this is a spot where I think they're going to have to lean into Jaden Mayava's arm. Against Michigan, a tough team to run on. I don't see USC having a ton of success running the ball in this spot, but through the air, that's where they've been very good, just getting big plays. So far this season, USC, I think they're third when it comes to yards per pass attempt. They've gotten 11 yards per pass attempt this year, just constantly getting big plays, chunk plays, and that's what they can do against this Michigan defense. I think they can throw the ball deep. They can use Jaden Mayava's arm. He's a very good quarterback. He's been a very good fantasy quarterback as well. He took over for Miller Moss last season. Miller Moss then transferred to Louisville, and now Jaden Mayava has been the full-time starter this year. He's played really well as the starter for this USC offense. They're a team that's kind of equipped, in my opinion, to beat this Michigan defense with how much talent they have, especially like a wide receiver. They have guys that can break off big plays, chunk plays, and 18.5 fantasy score, even in kind of a tougher matchup on paper against a good Michigan defense. I still feel like this is a low line on Jaden Mayava. I mean, he's still projected to throw for almost 270 yards this week, and he's favored to throw 2 touchdowns. If Jaden Mayava throws 270 yards and 2 touchdowns, he's pretty likely to go over this fantasy score line, especially because he can also give you fantasy points with his legs. Again, he does have 4 rushing touchdowns this year, so he has potential to get fantasy points as a runner as well, not only as a passer, but also as a runner. Just a quarterback that has really big fantasy upside. And 18.5, I think, is a low line on him, especially just given how good he's been this season, even in kind of a tougher spot against Michigan. So yeah, guys, these are what I'm liking as our 3 props for this slate on Saturday. We're taking Beau Pribula, more than 212.5 pass plus rush yards. Deuce Robinson, more than 14.5 fantasy score. And Jaden Mayava, more than 18.5 fantasy score. So let's try and go 3-0 this week. Went 2-1 last week. Just missed out on a full sweep. But hopefully this week we can go 3-0 and hit all 3 of these plays. As always, guys, appreciate you watching these Prizepicks videos. I appreciate your support as well. Make sure that you hit that like button down below if you enjoy these videos. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button as well. And if you guys don't have an account over on Prizepicks, be sure to go sign up for Prizepicks. Use that promo code NOAH when you do. Again, when you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code and play $5, you're going to get $50 of free lineups just for signing up and using code NOAH. So definitely check out Prizepicks if you guys don't have an account over there yet. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate your support. Let's win some money tonight. and I'll see you guys in the next video.